Hello, everyone. Welcome to Camille's Harem, not just a podcast by novice writers for novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends.
Wait, you didn't tell me that this was going to be on YouTube.
Yeah, it's a YouTube.
Okay. I'm getting embarrassed just thinking about it. But we can go on.
So today we are obviously joined by myself, being Nathan, and Scott.
Hi.
Hello, Scott.
Hi, Lars.
Welcome to the study. Today this is going to be, the last episode of the season for us here on YouTube. We're all going to take a bit of a break because it's the holidays. We need a bit of a break. We want to spend some time with our family. We need to recoup. And also we want to get some extra writing done and just prep ourselves for next year, because next year we are hitting everything super hard. The writing hard, the podcasting, and the YouTubing, and everything else. So we definitely need a break before we start sprinting.
Yes, and before we start sprinting, we want to look back on how our year has been. And not only that, but also look back even further to the beginning, the concept, the very beginning, back before we were Camille's Harem, back when we called ourselves the Storyboard. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think it's been 3.5, almost 4 years, I think, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to look at that real quick. May 26, 2015 was the day I started this document. And then that next week, we met together for the first time.
Yep.
Wow.
That's right.
I've only been here for the past, year maybe?
Year.
And
yeah, in the background, in the shadows.
In the shadows.
In the shadows.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, just living in the same apartment as Nate and Vince, and hearing about all of this stuff and then listening to the actual episodes as they came out, it's been quite a ride. You guys have actually impressed me on how good you've gotten. I mean, at the start it was a little rough, but then it just got better and better as you went. And so just kind of as my view as an outsider up till this point anyway, I think it's getting better. I think this podcast will probably hit its stride maybe next year, maybe the next year after that. You'll start getting all sorts of fans, but I think if we keep going now, it'll be awesome.
Well, thanks, Scott.
I mean, that's the goal, because we want this to keep on going. We've had so much fun writing. We wouldn't be here 3.5 years later if we didn't enjoy doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I mean, thinking back to it, back when we first called ourselves the Storyboard, before we called ourselves Camille's Harem, it's incredible. It's been incredible how so much has changed. And before we started recording, Nathan and I were we took a chance to look at how much we've actually written. And normally, I get to hear from other novice writers where they say, I've got this project, got this book I'm working on. And they write about 5,000 to 10,000 words. And then they're all like, whew, I did what I was going to do. I did what I set out to do. It's great. It's beautiful. And here I am 3.5 years later, and I'm like, I have done the math. I have written 1 million+ words, which, to put that into perspective, easily equals 5 thick novels. And it shows that because I actually have a handful of novels in the works that I'm trying to put through the pipeline of publishing. And the thing is this, I say that in part to give myself a hearty pat on the back, because that's a whole lot of writing.
That's a lot of writing.
Also because I have to say this, it is totally true what other experienced writers say. The more you write, the better you get. My writing at the beginning, when we first had Storyboard, sucked. I even told you guys, don't expect a whole lot of dialogue in my books, because I can't write dialogue. I now love writing dialogue. It's still not the best, but oh my gosh, I've gotten so much better.
Yeah. And myself, I haven't read or written to the extent that Lars has. I went through a few weeks back, and I added them all together, and I have over 200,000 words written between many of my different stories and whatnot. And that is obviously at least a fourth less than Lars has. But with that said, I have as well, written enough to fill up a Sanderson novel, like a hearty Sanderson novel. And I'm like, wow, I've really written that much stuff. And it's taken me 3.5 years. And, I'm getting faster every single month that I actually do write, which I haven't written a lot this month, but that's another story for another time. But, But as an actual writer, like, I have seen how much I've grown just within my singular project of Blackwings, because as I've been writing Blackwings, I started Blackwings, like I said, when we first started meeting together, and I'm nearing the end of that. Of course, I've written other stuff on the side, but, like, just seeing the progress within that story alone is very, like, it's a motivator. And another thing we were talking about, just kind of as a branch off of this topic, we were talking about looking back at what you've written. Like, number one, yes, it's a good thing to, like, look back, see where you've been, like, because, like, a lot of the times, you know, your early stuff is garbage. But also, it's important to remember that stuff, like, that is, you did the best you could where you were at when you wrote that. And so it's important to remember that. And also, as another side note to this, is that I recently, just yesterday actually, had an experience where I was writing a fight scene from one of my earlier chapters, and in which, like, when I wrote it all out, like, I realized that I didn't really like it, and I couldn't really figure out why. And so I went back and wrote or read what I originally had written, and I found out that my original work just worked so much better. Like, it was sweet, to the point, concise. The verbiage was off. Like, the verbiage needed some definite work, as well as just clarity. It needed to be more clear. But, like, the actual choreography, the actual, like, way, the rhythm of the story worked so much better. And I realized that being able to look back on my old work to, like, reflect, because it's important to look back and say, oh, I did this wrong, how can I fix it? It's just as important to look back and say, I did this right, how can I make it better? And that's what I was able to learn. So never throw away any of your stuff. Move it to a different dock, but don't throw it away.
Yeah, and that's why I've actually enjoyed this podcast so much. It's just, I'll listen to your stuff, I'll listen to, like, how passionate everybody is about the writing, and it really gets me fired up about my own writing. And so I'll start setting goals. I'll start doing a whole lot more for my writing than I did before. And it really helped me get out of the slump that I had over the summer this year. Just because I felt like there wasn't anything I could do to, like, get me writing more. But this podcast did it.
That's awesome. See, right there, this is the adventure of sharing your work. It's an adventure that we all as novice writers go on. Like, if you're watching this or listening to this and you're just like, come on guys, like really, I feel kind of alone out here as I do my own writing. That's why we try to build a community. That's why, for instance, we have our Reddit, so that way people can come and talk to us, because many times you might feel alone, or you might feel like you can't go anywhere after you hit a roadblock or something like that. And that's what we've discovered. Like, none of us would have come this far. Like, you think that I would just, of my own free will and choice, spend so many countless hours doing all that writing to reach 1 million words unless I actually had people backing me up, giving me support and everything? Like, I would not be here now if it wasn't for all of you, if it wasn't for Nathan, for Camille, for Vince, and for Jed, and now also for Scott, giving advice and giving encouragement, and many others as well. Like, once you go out and you start sharing your work, which I highly encourage all of you to share what you're writing with other people. You can find like-minded people and souls that will want to share this adventure with you. They will help encourage you. They will build you up. They will give you advice. They'll make you better writers overall. To kind of wrap up my thoughts so far on this.
Before you do that, I kind of want to just interject real quick.
All right.
I found that, like, most people actually, or at least I might be a little bit biased since I work at Barnes & Noble and I'm kind of surrounded by those people all the time. But, like, the people that I talk to and the people that I talk about writing and novice writing, like, a lot of people want to write stories. They're just too afraid or not confident enough to do it. And so, like, get out there, start talking to people about it. You'd be surprised who's out there who wants to, like, write something. Mm-hmm. Okay, anyway. Continue what you're saying. So I was just going to wrap up by saying I've got some advice, especially from this past year, because this past year I started attacking things with a fury. I started looking at really saying, okay, this is what I want my first series of books to be, and I just really attacked the sequel, which it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to continue a story when you've already finished one book, even if you know it's a series. It's a hard thing. It presents its own series of problems. So I was tackling that. I was doing something entirely new, working with steampunk. I do fan fiction on the side, and I was dabbling in novellas. And so some of the things I want to wrap up by giving some advice from my own experiences. And one of which I've learned is this: when it comes to novice writing, ask yourself this:
Am I someone who is writing because I want to get published? Am I someone who's writing for the fun of it? Or am I someone who just loves fan fiction and I want to be buried in fan fiction? And granted, there's other choices out there as well, but those were the kind of three that I really ran on into. And once you figure out what it is you really want to do, if you're just writing for fun or if you're writing to get published, once you know what it is that you want to do, that really helps create or give yourself a kind of guiding star to follow. And then from there, if you're someone who you do want to get published, and I'm sorry, you're going to have to lay to the side kind of little fan fictions. Like those would be something fun to do as kind of a relaxation exercise. But you're going to want to put your nose to the grindstone, because if you put off a project for too long, it's very hard to get back on into it. And also, as far as like being then consistent with your writing, find out what works for you. Some people need to be sequestered somewhere nice and quiet. Other people are really good when it comes to listening to soundtracks. For myself, I choose about an hour to 2 hour long soundtrack, and that is where I just put myself into the zone and I just work. If I work more than that, I find I burn myself out, and that's never good, because then you start lagging behind. You just find something that works really well for you, work really hard in that window of opportunity, and only really work so much in that window of opportunity, because otherwise you might start burning yourself out. If you find extra time to write or to plan or whatever else, draw on the side, then do that, because that's fun. Yeah. But don't work to the point of burning yourself out. Yeah, and don't do that. If you can be consistent, you're going to do great. That consistency is really the only reason why I've been able to balance out doing this YouTube channel and writing, because I give each one its own window of opportunity. So that right there, that's kind of my advice as far as looking back on this year. If you put in the work, you can make miracles happen.
Perfect. So I'm just going to follow that up with saying that we are starting, since we're kind of going on break for this and also for our podcast, starting January, we're going to start our podcast again. We're jumping into season 2. We'll be talking about this topic more in depth. So join us there coming most likely the first week in January. That's the week I'm shooting for, and just kind of as a way to be, so in order to be accountable, I'm going to say that we're starting January 1st, or the first week of January, where we talk more about this. There's something else I want to say, but I've lost it.
Well, so we're going to, with the upcoming season, with season 2 of our podcast, we've had an absolute blast talking about random subjects and doing fan fiction readings, which we're still going to do. We're still going to have time that we're going to talk about some random stuff. We're still definitely going to do the bad fan fiction epic readings, but we want to focus more on our own journeys as novice writers. So that way you can see through our own experiences what it is that we've gone through. That when we give our advice, we're giving our advice honestly. It's not that we're trying to pass ourselves off as something that we're not, but because we have encountered this for ourselves. And we also want to hold ourselves accountable as far as writing goes. So you guys will get a chance to see how we are improving as writers, and hopefully you can learn from our mistakes and from our experiences. Maybe it's like with Scott, maybe this doesn't even give you anything other than motivation to go and write your own stuff, but we really want you to experience our adventure and become fellow adventurers in novice writing.
Okay. You lovely, wonderful people out on the internet. Hello. You can find us everywhere except for LinkedIn and Instagram. We're not on any of those, or MySpace. But find us on Reddit, where you can join in on the discussion, like we mentioned in this video here. And please do, and share it around. Share around our podcast. Join us on there on Podbean, Google, iTunes, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. You'll find us there. Pinterest, we have a ton of writing prompts. Twitter, send us some bad fanfics there as well, so that we can read them and laugh with you guys, as well as laugh at the suffering of our souls as we read these terrible things.
And also check out our Tumblr, where you might catch snippets of the art that we're either making ourselves or that we've commissioned from wonderful artists out there about our works. So you'll be a chance to see some of the artwork that we're dealing with, because hey, artwork helps inspire us, and hopefully it helps inspire you. So
yes. Alrighty. Yeah. This has been Camille's Harem. Bye-bye.
Cheers.